What's up, beautiful ladies and handsome men? I am not sure what's true or false in this story. I take gossip, tea, rumor, and scandal from yesteryear, from online, from word of mouth, from books, and I ball it up and I tell you guys a story. Now, let's get to it.
It's time for our best friend, Skillshare. Most of you already know that Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes, and you also know that I have been taking plenty of classes to get my Scary Stories channel off the ground. But baby, the real star of the show is my husband. That boy been taking his gardening classes faithfully. I can't wait to taste some of these doggone collard greens. These are the same collard greens that I showed you in the other video when they were little tiny bitty. The latest class he's taking is Gardening 101, a guide for growing and caring for plants, taught by the fabulous Jerldean. Skillshare has classes for gardening, creative writing, graphic design, web development. Look up on the screen. I'm putting a lot of their classes up right now. They offer everything. And yes, you need it, especially if you're trying to become a professional at something, because I definitely consider myself a professional storyteller. But baby, you better believe I'm still taking my Skillshare classes because I want to be the best. Once you get started in your classes, you don't have to worry about any interruptions because Skillshare doesn't even have ads on their videos. Also, if you feel like things are getting a little hard, there is a community of people you can reach out to. Put your mind, your money, and your energy into what will benefit you.
And that is why I have made it for the first 1,000 of my viewers to sign up through my link in the description. We'll get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can go ahead and start exploring your creativity today. And now it's time to sit back and relax and let's hear about pure Hollywood royalty. Yesteryear royalty. Hattie Mcdaniel. Let's get to it.
Hattie Mcdaniel was born on June the 10th, 1893 in Wichita, Kansas. Her mother's name was Susan Hobart, who was a singer of gospel music, and her father, Henry McDaniel, fought in the Civil War, and also later on in life, he did some very minimal theater. Now, Hattie's parents were born into slavery, but of course, by the time she came along, they were free men and women. And along with Hattie, I'm not sure exactly how many children they had, but I do know for sure that Hattie had at least 2 sisters, Olena and Etta, and at least 2 brothers, Sam and Otis. And Otis was the oldest brother, possibly the eldest out of all of the children. And just to throw this in there, Hattie's brother Sam was a semi-successful actor himself. You will definitely notice him if you watch Three Stooges. He was in a lot of the Three Stooges shows. Now, little Hattie knew that she wanted to entertain very early in life, and gossip claims it is because her father sometimes took her with him whenever he performed or took her around other performers. So by the age of 6, Hattie was acting out full monologues. She was always singing, she was always dancing, always trying to entertain her family, and this got her a lot of money. Do you know why? Because her parents and other relatives used to pay Hattie to shut up and sit down somewhere, child. Sitting up there getting on everybody's nerves. Now, as a teen, Hattie attended Denver East High School, and she left there in 1910. And then soon after that, she met a handsome young man. His name was Howard Hickman, and they married in 1911 when Hattie was only 18 years old. Now, by all accounts, Howard Hickman was actually really good to Hattie, and he also supported her in her venture into acting. And not only was Hattie trying to act, all of her siblings were pretty much trying to sing and act as well. And so they started a acting troupe. And actually, it was really the eldest sibling, Otis. It was more of his acting troupe, and his siblings acted along with him. And then in 1914, Hattie and her sister Etta kind of broke off on their own and started a all-female minstrel show. Both shows, the female minstrel show and the minstrel show that Hattie performed with Otis and her other siblings, both of the shows were doing very well. But then out of nowhere, tragedy struck for Hattie, and that is when her husband Howard passed away in 1915. Hattie was of course heartbroken, but she continued to perform, she continued to pursue her dreams, and then another heartbreak came out of nowhere. Her eldest brother Otis ended up passing away in 1916. And with Otis's death, things really just kind of started slowly but surely falling apart, because when it came to money, when it came to marketing, advertising, getting people in to actually see the show, Otis was the brains behind the operation. Without him, Hattie and her other siblings didn't really know what to do, and so they started losing their audience. Hattie still had it in her heart that she was meant to be an entertainer, and so she kept doing what she was doing. And then in the 1920s, she joined up with Professor George Morrison's Melody Hound. She also ended up finding love once again, and in 1922 she ended up marrying a Mr. George Langford. So things are back looking up for Hattie. She has her new marriage, she is performing with this new ensemble, and she, along with this ensemble, are actually performing for a radio show. And then in 1926, Hattie took it a step further, honey, and started a little solo career. And between 1926 and 1929, she recorded several recordings for OK Records. And when she started recording back in 1926, it started off as glam, glitz, everything good. But then Hattie struggled to keep going with it because once again, she faced tragedy with her husband. She lost her second husband, George Langford, in 1926, and he died violently. He died from gunshot wounds. I do not know the circumstances around it. But as I already stated, from 1926 to 1929, Hattie is making all of these records, so things are going pretty good, and she is just waiting for her next gig. And then her next gig came, and Hattie was mad as everything, child, because this gig was as a dishwasher. You see, something happened that Hattie could not control. The stock market ended up crashing, and once that happened, nobody wanted to see her perform or Professor George Morrison or anybody else, and they also were not buying her record. So Hattie had to do what she had to do, and her new dishwashing gig was at a place called Club Madrid. But here's the crazy thing about it though. Club Madrid actually has live entertainers. They actually have performers that get on stage every night. So Hattie is in the back washing dishes, and she's like, you know what? This ain't gonna work, baby. I'm supposed to be on that stage. So she starts saying a little thing to the owner, Sam Pick. Now, Mr. Pick, I know I'm good at washing these dishes, but sir, if you let me on that stage, I'll light it up. I'm telling you, Mr. Pick, I bring you in so much doggone money. I got it, Mr. Pick. And Hattie kept on bugging and pleading and pushing that finally Sam Pick said, take you behind to the stage, Hattie. Go to the stage, and baby, you better bring in some money. And Hattie got on that stage, and she did not disappoint. And so Sam Pick made her a regular on that stage. But see, while Hattie was doing this, her brother Sam and her sisters Etta and Olena actually made their way to Hollywood. They were now trying for the pictures, and Hattie felt like she wanted to as well. So soon she left Club Madrid and she joined her brother and sisters in Hollywood. But just because you're in Hollywood does not mean things are just gonna start happening for you. So when they got there, she and her siblings found jobs in showbiz to be very scarce. So this time Hattie had to start doing maid work. And not only maid work, sometimes she'd take a position as a cook, or she'd take a position as a washwoman, anything that had to do with service, anything that was bringing in some type of money. Then finally some work came her way, and this is not work that she was expecting, because this was not work in the pictures. This was actually work on a radio show. Her brother Sam Mcdaniel had actually found work on a radio program called the Optimistic Donut Hour, and he put in a word for his sister. So they told him, bring her in, let's check her out. Hattie wowed those people so much that they gave her her own time slot. She had her own show, and it was called Hi Hat Hattie. And Hi Hat Hattie was a hit. Honey, people just loved listening to Hattie Mcdaniel tell white folks off. Her show was about herself being a sassy, no-nonsense maid. You know, her character was basically one of those, like Bernie Mac said on his special. They would come to work, and then they would tell the employer, you know, I ain't come here to work. Don't be asking me to do something. Or something like, you know, yes, sir, you know, I done got your shirts just as clean and smell good as I can. Your armpits just musty, sir. She probably didn't say that, but you get the gist. She was very sassy. And so again, Hattie McDaniel's show was booming, but Hattie McDaniel was being paid peanuts. She was being paid so little that she actually had to keep her real maid job. And so this was an embarrassing time for Hattie. You know what I'm saying? Because once people knew her name, especially in the black community, they know her name, they know who she is, and they're like, you know, girl, you are booming. You know what I'm saying? But then she's actually going back to work as a maid, and the people that knew her are like, how you sitting up there being so successful on the radio, but you working as a maid? Soon enough, though, Hattie became popular enough to get a small role in her first movie. This movie was called The Golden West. And after this movie, Hattie McDaniel lucked out big time because they cast her in a blockbuster. And Hattie had no idea at the time, honey, but this movie would be the vehicle that she needed to boost her career. Big time film star Mae West. Ugh. When I'm good, I'm very good. but when I'm bad, I'm better, was bringing another one of her famous movies to the screen. And this movie was called I'm No Angel. And this movie showed a pretty good bit of dialogue between Mae West and Hattie Mcdaniel. And this dialogue was definitely a comedy type dialogue. They were really hamming it up for the camera. And to Hattie, it was really probably on par with the comedy work that she was already doing on the radio with Hi Hat Hattie. See, the difference is that people could actually see Hattie Mcdaniel in action, especially the casting director. Now they could actually see her facial expressions, her smiles, her frown, her moving around and being very expressive, how she could interact on screen with other actors. And the casting directors were very impressed with what they saw. So Hattie started to gain even more popularity. And this performance also made it much easier for her to join the Screen Actors Guild. And now that she was a SAG actress that had done well in a popular movie, Hattie started to score even bigger movie roles. And then get this, honey, this the big deal right here. Her name started to appear in the credits, baby. She would no longer be Negro Maid #1. She would now be Negro Maid #1 ... Hattie Mcdaniel. And this may not mean anything to you guys, but believe me, honey, this was huge news. This means you've really taken a step up as an actor. You're no longer considered just this extra that they've hired for a small part. This means if you want to book this woman is playing this maid, if you want to book her name is Hattie Mcdaniel, and this is her contact info. So now Hattie's movie dialogue starts to get a bit more important to the film. Sure, like if you cut the dialogue out, the film wouldn't really drag or anything like that. But the doggone movie sure wasn't gonna be as good without it. And so really out of nowhere, doors just started tumbling open for Hattie Mcdaniel. And before she knew it, she got a contract with Fox Film Corporation. And she appeared in their movie, The Little Colonel, with Shirley Temple and Bilbo Jangles Robinson. Then she starred in her biggest movie to date at that time, and that movie was called Judge Priest. And notice the word change here. I didn't say appeared, I said starred. Yes, Hattie Mcdaniel was cast as a part of the main cast. One could even call her a leading actress of this film. Now it was assured that the movie would definitely drag if Hattie Mcdaniel wasn't there with her dialogue. After this, she starred in Alice Adams, China Sea, Murder by Television, Vivacious Lady, Showboat, and the list goes on. All you need to know at this time is that Hattie Mcdaniel was a busy woman. And then whispers started running around Hollywood about this big Oscar grab production, about this movie that was going to be the star maker of all star makers. This movie was called Gone with the Wind. And honey, when those whispers started, everybody and they mama lined up to be in this doggone movie. I'm talking about every single actor and actress in Hollywood. And there was one great role for a black actress, and that was the role of Mammy. And I know some people out there probably sitting with their arms crossed. You know, it's just a maid role. What's that? Baby, I have you know that the competition to play Mammy was just as stiff as the competition to play Scarlett O'Hara. Everybody was vying for that role. Competition so steep, I'm talking about First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt wrote to David O. Selznick, the producer of the film, asking that her own maid, Elizabeth McDuffie, get the role of Mammy. And Eleanor tried to say, she's sassy just like the role. But see, what First Lady didn't know, this ain't the United States of America. This is Hollywood, baby. We talking show business. Did you really think that David O. Selznick is gonna put his film in jeopardy by having a maid who's never been an actress or actor or whoever before and possibly ruin his movie by not getting it just right? Baby, David O. Selznick told Eleanor, no thanks. This is a real Hollywood movie. This is show business, baby. I need real actresses. But even with that made out it was still a heck of a fight for Hattie Mcdaniel. So big that Hattie Mcdaniel didn't even really think she would get the role, honestly, because all of her parts that she had done so far were comedy roles. That is what she was known for. But she went to the audition anyway, and she had on her authentic maid uniform, and baby, before she can get to the dressing room to take her uniform off, it was decided she got the part. Huge feat to get that role. People seem to forget it was a huge feat to get that role. When Gone with the Wind premiered, the world was in awe of one person. That was Hattie Mcdaniel. The way that she portrayed this strong
slave that
kept the whole house in check, and especially that spoiled, whiny, manipulative Scarlett O'Hara. Hattie was basically the only one, or Mammy was the only one that could get Scarlett told. That can kind of put her in her place and let her know that you're doing too much, Scarlett. Nobody knew it was gonna happen. Nobody planned for it to happen. But Hattie Mcdaniel stole that movie and took off running, baby, and they could not catch her. And sis took everything. I mean, even took home an Academy Award. And let me rephrase that for layman's term for some of you folks. I'm talking about sis took home an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, first black person in history to ever have done it. Beat out several white actresses. And baby, I ain't talking about no Rudy Poos. Like I always say, honey, one of those actresses was Olivia de Havilland that was starring in that same movie. Even beat out Geraldine Fitzgerald, who starred in Wuthering Heights. Now you tell me she ain't have it going on. Hattie Mcdaniel was an outright star. And now she had become a living legend. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Hattie Mcdaniel is on that very short list of people who became a legend in their own lifetime. Oh, and back to the Oscars. Child, y'all should have seen how Hattie did her little speech, honey. Baby, Hattie had to put on the show. Now, I do believe that she has showed some real emotion and all that kind of stuff, but I don't care what nobody say. Sister Girl was acting. Girl, y'all should have seen how Hattie come up on that stage, handkerchief in hand, talking about some, my heart is too full to tell you how I feel. And may I say thank you. Now, Hattie, girl, go on. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Like I said, I do know that most of the emotion was real, but that little run off and cry off the stage, Hattie. But now that we have gotten to Hattie's show enough success, honey, you know what time it is. It is time to get to the scandalous gossip and tea. And I have to say that Hattie's tea is not super scandalous, but it is still very, very interesting. So go ahead and listen up and let's get to it. Now, this first rumor is actually a rumor that was going around Hollywood at that time. And that is the rumor that Clark Gable had a hand in getting Hattie Mcdaniel her role in Gone with the Wind. Gossip claims that Clark Gable put a bug in the director or the producer's ear and basically told them that Hattie was the best for the part and that she is who he wanted to work with. But we will never really know if this is true because Hattie had a lot of haters at the time. And it's very possible that other black actors saw how close Hattie Mcdaniel and Clark Gable were. And so they basically said that because they were upset about Hattie getting the part. And that right there leads me to a little bit more gossip because, baby, it is claimed that Hattie Mcdaniel and Clark Gable were close like you wouldn't believe. They were so close that had it have been Dorothy Dandridge that Clark Gable was close to like that, I'm pretty sure the rumors would have been that they were messing around. Yes, Hattie and Clark were that close. Probably the only reason that it wasn't put out that they were messing around is because it was inconceivable that Hattie Mcdaniel would drop her pants for somebody like Clark Gable and vice versa. But for some reason, Clark Gable could find himself very comfortable around Hattie Mcdaniel. It's like when he was around her, he could really be himself. So he shared all types of secrets with her. You know, he kept a lot of her secrets. Like, they were just super duper cool. He would go over to her house, kick off his shoes and relax and spend quality time with Hattie. And he was definitely a fixture at some of her famous house parties, but we will get to that more in a minute. Now let's talk about some gossip with Hattie and Gone with the Wind. Now, honey, listen at this. Gone with the Wind may have been Hattie Mcdaniel's biggest triumph, but believe me, it was her biggest headache as well. Black folks went after Hattie Mcdaniel like Hattie Mcdaniel was Satan walking the earth. You wouldn't even think that Hattie Mcdaniel was a part of the black race the way that those people attacked her. And when I say those people, I'm really talking about the national leader of the NAACP, Walter White. This guy hated Hattie Mcdaniel, and he went after her with every fiber in his being. And he hated her because he hated her portrayal as a massa, yes a boss.
Mammy.
He did not like that. He felt like the black race could not progress if Hattie Mcdaniel kept starring in these type roles. And if you're wondering, no, Hattie Mcdaniel was not the only one starring in these type of roles, but she was the main one to get targeted because she was the one in basically the biggest movie of the century. He would have full sermons against Hattie, have full articles written up denouncing Hattie. I mean, calling her a coon, essentially. He would also go on radio shows saying this. And I get what he was saying, I get what he was doing, but this is Hattie's video, and I will tell this video from Hattie's point of view. So it all happened like I said. Hattie started and Gone with the Wind. The woman woke up one day and it seemed like her world was turned upside down. Walter White had started this huge campaign against her. And at first, Hattie was kind of confused. And then after that, she also felt like very weighted down. You know what I'm saying? She had worked so hard to get to where she had gotten to, and then now the whole black race hated her. And she also felt like the whole black race put all of their problems on her back. She had a whole bunch of sleepless nights, and she would have these nights where she would just really sit there and cry to herself. But whenever she woke up the next morning, she plastered a smile on her face, and she would go out into the world facing white faces that were snarled up at her, facing black faces that were snarled up at her. And Walter keeps on slamming every time this man opens his mouth. It is to say something negative about Hattie Mcdaniel. And so after a while, she feels she needs to respond. She needs to respond for herself, but also the studio is kind of like dismayed at this big ruckus that's going on. And so she feels like she needs to respond for them as well. So Hattie gives her response, and she basically says that there's nothing in this movie that will injure black people. Then when that statement doesn't do anything and Walter White continues to double down, triple down, then Hattie is like getting a little bit more gangster. You know what I'm saying? She's like, hey, sir, you doing too much. You blabbing your lips a little bit too much, so now I gotta come really with it. So then she starts to say things a little bit snappy. You know what I'm saying? She starts to say stuff like, well, shoot, doggone it, I'd rather make $700 playing a maid than making $7 a week being a maid. And so because Hattie started to respond kind of smart alecky, and she would not just crumble and bend to Walter White's will, and then the fact that on top of her being insolent and not really crumbling, and then she won the Oscar on top of that, oh baby, Walter White started punching that woman all up in her doggone TT, baby. I mean, just ha in the TT, honey. And basically what I'm saying is that he started to hit her way below the belt, like for real. I mean, the man just went straight up trifling. In 1942, there was this NAACP meeting in Los Angeles. There were about 10,000 black people there, actors, entertainers, everybody, including Hattie. In front of all of these folks, Walter White ignored Hattie Mcdaniel for most of the ceremony. Didn't acknowledge her Oscar, didn't do anything, okay? You know what I'm saying? Because I guess basically he had been speaking against it. But anyways, it ain't even just that he ignored her. It's what this mother sucker did next. When he reached out to that crowd and he said, Miss Lena Horne, come on up. Come on up. I want people to take a look at you. Twirled Lena Horne around. Now I want y'all to take a good look at Miss Lena Horne. This is the future of black movies. This is the future of blacks in movies. She is the modern black woman. You'll never see nothing like this playing no maid. This is what we want, black people. We want a beautiful, cultured soul to represent black people. Disrespected and hurt Hattie so bad to bring on a woman that looked nothing like her. And then to say that this is the future of black Hollywood, this woman would never play a maid, and this is who we want and all this good stuff, after Hattie had busted her tail. And then, as if this wasn't enough, Walter White took it a step further and said, I've been negotiating directly with the studios of Hollywood to change what roles the blacks are given. I mean, seriously, how dare he just stroll into the offices of these studio heads and negotiate things and matters concerning black actors? You have not put in the blood, sweat, and tears to try to make change, but you come in here and have all the say-so? And yes, I am putting a lot more emotion into this, you know what I'm saying? But you'll always see me probably do more on acting videos than music videos. But, I mean, how dare he? After these people, not only Hattie McDaniel, all of these other black actresses have just put so much into this Hollywood thing, and now this man strolls in here talking big. He set up meetings. He's got the ear of some people, especially to do it and not include the biggest black actor of the time, Hattie McDaniel. It was just all sorts of wrong. And it hit Hattie McDaniel like a ton of bricks. And Walter White tried to twist it and turn it like it was for the better of actors and all this kind of stuff, but it was not. It was for what he wanted to see on the screen. And it was leaving certain actors and actresses out in the cold. And when Hattie McDaniel was asked about it, she said how she felt about it. And what she said was, I have no quarrel with the NAACP or some of the colored fans who object to some of the roles we play, but I naturally resent being completely ignored at this convention. I have struggled 11 years to open up our group to opportunity and have tried to reflect credit up on my race, both on screen and off screen. And then Walter White drove home his hatred of Hattie McDaniel even more when in 1942 she starred in a movie called In This Our Life. Walter White sent out a commendation letter, not to Hattie McDaniel to commend her for her performance, but to commend her white co-star, Olivia de Havilland. How does that even work? You're supposedly fighting for black issues, but you won't even congratulate this black woman that's on this film because she so-called played the mammy role, but you're so quick to write and congratulate this white actress. Make it make sense. And Walter White did, y'all. He basically talked about Hattie McDaniel like a dog. And he made her roles, her accomplishments seem so small. You know what I'm saying? Like an Oscar for a mammy. Anybody can play a doggone maid. Show me something with some acting range. Show me something with this, with that. Hurt her so bad that she was sullen and sad. And she said, well, God has endowed me with other talents too, which Walter White or no other persons know of, and they are not as menial as he says. So this woman is like feeling like she has to say that, you know, I can do other stuff too, since he said my acting is, and acting was great. That's the thing that gets me. Like, her acting was brilliant, but he made her feel so little, so small, that she is having to defend herself, like, you know, well, I can do other stuff too. Come on, man. But anyways, Walter White tried his best to ruin Hattie McDaniel, and in some ways it absolutely did work. Now, Hattie McDaniel was cast in other movies, but she definitely was never considered for any more rewards. I mean, because it was just such a freaking headache. And so even though it's probably not likely that she would have won another award, if there was any small chance, that killed it on out. And then even worse for Hattie McDaniel is things were happening to her with Gone with the Wind that was giving Walter White even more gas. Stuff like when Gone with the Wind premiered in Atlanta, Georgia, Hattie could not come. The producer, Selznick, tried to argue with studio bosses to get Hattie to come, but the studio bosses would not agree. They did not want to upset the Southern people. So Hattie had to stay away from the premiere. And of course, like I said, this gives more fuel to the fire to Walter White. But I tell you one thing, old Selznick fixed that baby. Hon, and when they did their grand opening premiere over in Hollywood, baby, Selznick made sure that Hattie McDaniel was front, right, and center, baby. I'm talking about even had programs printed up with her face smack dab in the middle, cheesing in all her great blackness, honey. And he made sure to tell Hattie to show up to that premiere and show up in style, baby. Now let's touch back on that Walter White. Because see, Walter White felt like he had blacks where he wanted them. They followed his lead, going against Hattie, called her all kind of coons, all kind of traitors. Heck, he was feeling like he was the man. He was feeling like he had black folks trained to think and say whatever he told them to. So when this new thing popped up, he figured, well, shoot, I'll just tell them that this is what it is and they will just accept it. I'm Walter White. And you all may be wondering where I am going with this. Well, while Walter White was rallying against Hattie McDaniel and he was going to all of these meetings with these big, rich, wealthy white studio heads, you know what I'm saying? Like he could sit in the same room with them, you know. They were now probably inviting him to fancy dinners, you know, to talk business over. He was really kind of one of them. And so Walter felt like, hey, I might as well go the whole way. And so one day he came home and told Gladys, his black wife of 27 years, that he wanted to divorce her, and he did. And he soon married a little white lady named Poppy Cannon. Black folks had a fit. Cha, talk about a hot mess, honey. Black folks was out here mad as all get out, baby. They felt like they had been had. They felt like they had been bamboozled. After all, they talked pure D smack against a real black woman, a real dark-skinned black woman who had only been with black men, who never showed anything in her character that says she wanted to be white. There was nothing ever like that about her. They went against her for this man who turned around and did what they felt like was the highest form of betrayal. Baby, it got so doggone bad for Walter White that, honey, if tarring and feathering was still a thing at that time, child, the black community probably would have tarred and feathered that man and ran him out of town on a doggone pole, baby. Shoot, he talking about fiery crosses. Baby, he was this doggone close to seeing a fiery cross up in his doggone yard, and it wasn't finna be no Klan that did that. And his colleagues started to dismiss him. They didn't want anything to do with him. And even more than that, his family. His sister basically went to the papers and said, you know, Walter always wanted to be white. He always wanted to be white, and now that he did this, you can tell that ain't my doggone brother no more. His son changed his last name from White to Darrow. And sometimes, hey, that's probably what happened when you do the most against somebody. Sometimes when you try to dig one person's grave, there's another grave sitting up there waiting for you. But anyways, to get back to the gossip, and this is actually going back to Gone with the Wind, and this is the little spat that Butterfly Mcqueen and Hattie McDaniel had on the set. Because unlike Hattie McDaniel, who was basically just trying to go to work and get her job done, you know what I'm saying? She understood what the times was. She understood what everything was going on. Butterfly Mcqueen had kind of gotten a little of that fiery spirit. All of this NAACP and the black stuff was going on. Butterfly Mcqueen agreed with it. You know what I'm saying? She also did not want to play the maid anymore. Now, she did still go out for the maid role in the film, but she did not want to play it in her heart of hearts. So when she went on the set, she went on the set looking for anything that a white person would do wrong against her. And of course, when you are feeling like this, anything that white people do to you is magnified anyway. You know what I'm saying? But Vivian Lee, little crazy tail, did something. Now, I'm not sure if this was magnified or not. The gossip claims there was a slapping scene that Scarlett O'Hara, aka Vivian Lee, had to do with Butterfly Mcqueen. And she supposedly slapped the taste out of Butterfly McQueen's mouth. This is what Butterfly McQueen said. So immediately, Butterfly McQueen is all up in arms. You know, she slapped me too hard. You did that because I was black. That's what you did that for. You need to apologize to me. And so Vivian Lee, I don't think would do it. You know what I'm saying? So sis, if you didn't mean it, why you want to apologize? So anyways, Butterfly McQueen was like, I'm not doing another line until she apologizes to me. And so she was causing this big ruckus. She was doing the most. So Hattie McDaniel comes over to her and she's like, hey, Butterfly, you will never work in Hollywood again because you're too difficult and you're kicking up too much of a fuss. And I believe that Butterfly McQueen got upset with her about this, and maybe that was coon-like behavior from Hattie McDaniel, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, as she was probably being a coon, she was also telling the truth. If Butterfly McQueen kept this up and was doing this on other movies and this movie, she probably would not find much work in Hollywood. Like that just was what it was, whether it was coon or not. And I think it might have turned into some little spat, or Butterfly McQueen may have gotten mad at her. I'm not sure, but that's what gossip claims. But outside of all of this Hollywood stuff, in 1941, Hattie McDaniel found love again. And that was with a small-time real estate agent named James Lloyd Crawford. And they got married in March of 1941. And so Hattie was excited to get another chance at a marriage, another chance at a relationship. And now she wanted this perfect little American family life, you know what I mean? So she goes out and she buys a huge, beautiful 17-room mansion in a neighborhood known as Sugar Hill, or the Black Beverly Hills. And this house was absolutely extraordinary. Nobody had seen anything like it. And so, Hattie had to show her house off, honey. And that is when she started throwing her very infamous parties. And actually, Hattie probably was throwing parties before this, because at the parties I think she had in the 30s, that is when she got real wild and real risque. And yes, it's in the 1930s that gossip claims that Hattie Mcdaniel was doing the 69 and scissor action, honey, with Tallulah Bankhead. And child, check this out. Gossip on the Streets also claims that Hattie Mcdaniel possibly could have had plenty of more lesbian relationships with other lesbian actresses. But we don't hear about these other actresses so often, is because they wasn't crazy like Tallulah Bankhead. They wasn't putting their doggone business out like that. You know what I'm saying? Tallulah Bankhead was telling everybody about her and Hattie. The other actresses were much more quiet. Back to the parties that Hattie Mcdaniel had in the 1940s, she probably didn't get as wild as she did in the 1930s, because see, now she was married, but her parties were still like pretty doggone wild for at least everybody else. Like, there were white actors, black actors. You would catch Paul Robeson there. You would catch Lena Horne there. You would catch Clark Gable there. You would catch Bing Crosby there. Like, you would catch everybody there, and there was no color line. So black and white stars were mixing all kind of juices, fluids. Honey, miscegenation might have not been allowed in the state of Mississippi, but it definitely was going on in Hattie Mcdaniel's house. People were doing the most. And Hattie liked to have a good time. It's claimed that you could find her walking around with her drink in her hand, dancing and boogieing with the band. And she was a pretty good dancer. But child, I guess Hattie started to have a little too much fun in her house, child. Because her white neighbors started hating, honey. They started saying that their house was now not as worth as much, and the property values were going down because of this black people that were moving into the neighborhood, especially that black Hattie Mcdaniel. And so they were essentially trying to make Hattie Mcdaniel move out, as well as block any more black people from moving in. Hattie handled this with charm and grace like she handled everything else, and she started getting other black actresses who were facing the same problems, Louise Beavers, Ethel Waters, just to name a few, and she handled this in court. And at the end of the day, Hattie Mcdaniel was very much victorious. And not only was this a win for Hattie Mcdaniel, her case was a historic win, because this stopped that type of segregation. It stopped being that the system could lower property value just because somebody black moved on the block. And also that those white neighbors could not just stand up and say, we don't want blacks on our block. Like, they couldn't do that anymore. And so Hattie is triumphant with her house. She still has her husband. Hattie just wants to have a happy life with her husband. So she feels like the only thing that she's missing is a child. She wants a child very, very badly to complete her life with her and her husband. And so in 1945, Hattie Mcdaniel is pregnant. And baby, Hattie Mcdaniel starts spending money. Do you hear me? Her baby was going to be spoiled rotten. She has the nursery fixed up so grand. She has bought all types of baby clothes. Boy clothes, girl clothes, it clothes, child, everybody doggone clothes. Hattie has bought it. I mean, she has piles on piles of pacifiers, rattles, bottles, everything. She is so excited for her baby. And then she finds out that it is a phantom pregnancy. It was no baby there. And sometimes this can happen to women that want babies very, very badly. They can start missing their cycles, and also, they can start feeling their stomachs growing and kicks, flutters of baby movements, you know what I'm saying? And it's really almost just all in the mind. So it was a sad thing. It was very, very depressing. And then on top of her having this phantom pregnancy, her marriage to James Crawford ended up falling apart, because gossip claims when he and his wife went out, everybody was like, oh my gosh, Hattie Mcdaniel. He did not like that his wife afforded this huge house. He didn't like that. He didn't like her popularity. He didn't like the fact that she made more money than him. He did not like that. He wanted to have all the focus on him and he have all the money. So now that Hattie had kind of gotten over this American dream type thing, Hattie was back to working. So she ended up finding great work with the show Beulah. And then in 1949, Hattie got another shot at love. She met Larry Williams, an interior designer, and she fell head over heels for him. They met at the beginning of the summer of 1949. Well, in June of that same year, they were married. And of course, Hattie jumped into this man's arms. You know, of course, he was everything to her because Larry Williams was that man that when she woke up in the morning, he was beside her saying, "Hey, beautiful. How you sleep last night? Well, I brought you breakfast." He was that kind to massage her feet. He was everything that she wanted in a man. He loved her. He kissed every single doggone roll on her doggone body. She was his queen. And Hattie bragged about this guy. And so sooner or later, she and Larry were the power couple of Black Hollywood. One day, Larry was like, "Come here, Hattie." And she came up to him and she leaned in for a kiss. And Larry bust her all upside the head, child. They said that Hattie Mcdaniel and Larry was fighting each and every day. He started talking to her and talking about her like a dog, calling her name, doing her any kind of way. And it was revealed that Larry Williams basically was using her for her money. And it's claimed that he damaged Hattie so bad with his beatings and with his psychological torture that she lost plenty of weight. She basically stopped eating within like 2 months of meeting him. As a matter of fact, within 5 months, they were divorced. So Larry had turned out to be nothing more than a charmer. Hattie had turned out to be nothing more than a sugar mama. And then at the end of it, she was a beat down sugar mama. And baby, right before the end, Larry Williams had started giving Hattie Mcdaniel hell, honey. First, he was trying to force her to let them get a joint bank account. He would go on the cast of Beulah, child, and starting all these rumors talking about Hattie was talking about her castmates and telling folks, you know, "Boy, you wouldn't believe what she said about you when we at the house," starting all kind of mess. It is claimed that Hattie was so depressed and going through it so bad that she couldn't even focus on her work. You know what I'm saying? She was forgetting her lines. It was terrible. She had a terrible time dealing with this Larry Williams. And then after him, unfortunately, Hattie never found or tried to find love again. However, the show must go on, and it was now 1950, and Hattie was still working on Beulah, and everything was going fine. And then Hattie ended up feeling sick, and so she went to the doctor, and they informed her that she had breast cancer. Hattie tried to hold on for as long as she could, work as long as she could, but then in 1952, at the age of 59 years old, she passed away from the illness. And you know what's terrible is that Hattie McDaniel's Oscar, first it was taken by the IRS because they claimed that she had unpaid taxes or whatever. But then after all of that was paid with her estate, the Oscar was supposedly given to Howard University. Well, gossip claims that around 1960, 1970, the Oscar disappeared. Nobody knows where Hattie McDaniel's Oscar is. Terrible. Almost like this woman did all of this for nothing. This is the end of the Hattie McDaniel video. Love you guys so much. I am working on the next video now.